All right. Well, good morning, party people. It's been a bit since I've posted anything. I'll get into that. But for now, let's just talk about some updates. Uh, things are kind of looking up, going into the general direction of where I want them to be, kind of. Um, so it's Thursday right now. On Monday, I accepted a job offer. We'll talk a bit about it. And vaguely, we'll talk about it. Um, so, the process I was using was, you know, for people who might be new here, I have been working in mental health for like ages. Um, and at least with the situation I had before, with the pandemic and the living setting, living with all these people that just, being stuck in the house with them during lockdowns and, working from home, there were definitely benefits to it. Um, like not using the gas and, being able to kind of ease into work a little bit more. You get more rest time because you're not getting up so early just to like do stuff. But during the pandemic is pretty much when I started all these podcasts. And a lot of it was basically venting about my situation. So if I look at my situation of where I was then, spending about an hour, hour and a half every day once I got off work, leaving the house, going down the street, smoking a bowl in a San Diego, parking lot, and venting about, you know, the whatever happened the night before, with likely somebody waking me up or knocking on the door, the roommates arguing, or whatever was going on in the household, and the stressor of work, having a job that, where I got gaslighted, and, I did get bumped up to a different position with a better pay rate that paid about, at that time it was like $6. So in May of 2020, I was making about $6 more, and then an extra dollar on top of that by um, a year, like into 2021. But still living in that environment, and I had one of the best snowboard years of my life around 2021, but somewhere after April or so of 2021, my just like everything felt like it was declining. Health wise, I started noticing more. I'm sleeping more, I'm exercising less, getting to the gym less, hiking less. Um, I was getting out with friends less in a different way just because we couldn't go to bars and clubs and stuff. So a lot of our hanging out was like more, just chilling around Balboa Park, beaches, rooftops, little house gatherings, like kickbacks, bonfires, in in backyards and stuff of people who did have a space, which there really weren't that many people who had a space, but the parks and things, usually it was easy to find space. Pretty much anywhere that wasn't Mission Beach was pretty much easy to kind of like get to and hang out at. So we did that. Um, in September of 2022, I started studying for something more tech relevant, uh, tech sales, digital marketing. Now, I didn't really have much experience in sales other than e-commerce, um, but um, digital marketing, I've dabbled for like ages with like the blogging and the websites and you know that kind of thing, and helping people with their sites, at least to like launch, have something to launch with like a logo and like a website, a blog, all that kind of stuff. So I've been doing that since maybe like 2011, 2007 or something, like when I was getting done with grad school. Um, and so that's always like a good fallback skill, because there are a lot of people out there that are professionals that want to open their own businesses and things, and they have to have an online presence. And a lot of people, if they're in an office or whatever, or at a clinic or wherever they're working, and they're trying to like set up their own thing, they might not know about what that really looks like to have an online presence. So I kind of had that under my belt. Like, I would say it wasn't like developed to a way where I could definitely like guarantee somebody's gonna make money if they hired me at that point, before I started any kind of like actual learning around it, like more formal learning, do like boot camps and interning and all that kind of stuff. Um, but from September 2022 through, let's call it now, April 2024, what have I noticed has changed? I've been able to finish some certifications, tech related, that don't involve like coding or anything like that. Well, you can use HTML, CSS, like, I mean, it helps to kind of know, like, if you know Python, that's gonna help. Like, any kind of language you can learn is gonna be of more use than not, just to know it. But the thing is, it's kind of hard to learn that kind of stuff if you're not using it. Like, it's not that it's hard to learn, it's just it's hard to memorize it if you're not using it. At least for me, I've never been able to like retain the information if I'm not using it. So I never really fully got into coding for that reason. I do have an interest still in cybersecurity, um, and but I know that's a long route. But I was like, okay, sales and digital marketing, they're very related. I can already sell my own services, which I've done, and um, I'm still learning more about advertising and budgets and all that kind of stuff, like running campaigns for other companies through their own budgets. That's something I'm not yet comfortable with, but I'll be doing that with my own once I kind of raise the capital to be able to do that. So I'm basically hoping that this job will help me raise capital to be able to do that, and you know put more of the money into the e-commerce stuff. I've been doing Uber Eats just because it's the fastest money, um, daily, that you can kind of just cash out daily. So I kind of like that aspect, even though I'm not really into it, because you do have to pay and it is more time than it's worth. Say if you spend 3-4 hours online, you might get 1 to 2 hours worth of work that they actually count. You do get at the least minimum wage for that, but I estimate if I put in about 8 hours of actual counted hours, where they track the difference between if you're logged on and while you're logged on that day, how much of that actually counts. They only count when you get an order, when you're driving to that order to pick it up, and when you're driving from the pickup restaurant to the house or drop off location for the customer who ordered the food. That's all that actually gets counted. So if I'm waiting an hour, if I'm waiting at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., if I'm waiting at 10 a.m., and I don't get an order, even though my app is on, and I don't get an order till 11:15 a.m., that whole hour and 15 minutes does not count toward anything. Even if I'm driving around town, even if I'm sitting in one spot, it is an hour. It doesn't matter. 75 minutes wasted that you don't get paid for just because you're sitting online. And the order can be 11:15. The order comes in, you accept it. Maybe it's $8 for, like, they say it's like 35 minutes or something, and that means it's going to be like within like probably 2 to 3 miles from wherever you're at. That's the total distance you're going to be driving, is like 2 to 3 miles. It's usually going to be like within that 30-minute range, and usually in that 30-minute range they'll pay you anywhere from a little under $3 to $3. That's usually with no tips, or about $5 to $8 with a little tip, or if they're actually tipping you 20% or so, it's usually going to be around that $8 range per order. And so if it takes you from 11:15, once you accept the order, to go get it, and then you drop it off, let's say it's quick, you're there by 11:30, you've only and then you verify that you've delivered the order, and it's 11:15 to 11:30, you've only technically worked 15 minutes for $8. And then you'll usually get more orders, especially if it's like a lunch rush. You'll usually keep stacking orders from there, and then you'll just go from there. But the whole time you're driving, you're wasting gas. And so, yes, that $8 you made, you still have to calculate that you drove to a restaurant, you drove to a house, and then they're probably going to send you another order. You drove to another restaurant, you drove to a different, maybe you're dropping some lunch off for somebody who's at work, so you drove to that place of business. Sometimes you get 2 orders. You guys know how it works if you've delivered, but that money is not predictable. But basically the Prop 22 pays you out, so they calculate how long you've been actually working within the orders, and make sure that what you got paid as far as tips and the delivery fees and everything is at least minimum wage. And so they're going to pay you out the minimum wage difference of what you did not get paid, and then they're going to pay you out the partial mileage reimbursement. So I've estimated that if I work 8 hours, about 8 hours for about let's say about 8 hours for the time that they're actually verifying that I'm like doing orders, I'm gonna get about 100, maybe somewhere between $90 to $110 ish every 2 weeks. So that's nothing, that's nothing. But that's every two weeks, and then at the same time you're getting paid daily per order, and then when you cash it out, they take a percentage. If you cash out to their freaking card, or out of their freaking card, if you cash out to their system, you're not getting, let me see, if you cash out to the card that they give you, it's like $2.99 per cash out, or $1.99 or something. And if you cash out to your own debit card, it's like 85 cents per cash out. And it's instant, but they take that money. And so, and if you're in the middle of a ride, you can't cash out. And so, say if you need to go get gas in the middle somewhere, you can't accept something and then cash the money out while you're like technically doing a delivery. So you gotta really not drive your car on empty and stuff like that. You gotta really kind of prepare. So for that reason, that's not for me. Like, especially because you can't just work all day and make money. Like, if I start my app at 8:30 a.m., unless it's like a Sunday or Saturday or a day where people are ordering breakfast or something, you know, most people aren't ordering breakfast on weekdays to deliver because it takes a while and they're running, around. Unless they're at work, people might order in the mornings, but you usually don't have a breakfast rush for the most part. It's usually later, around the 11 people start ordering on weekdays, especially. On weekends, I would say around 10:30, 10 o'clock, you might get some orders, like brunch type orders. But usually by about 2 o'clock, 2:30, the orders kind of dry up, and then you have to wait again till later on. But usually before 11, you're not really getting that many orders. So you have all morning where you're not getting orders. Even if you keep your app on, you're very likely not going to get orders, even if you're sitting at hotspots where they have like a bunch of places where people always order from. And then that's basically what I learned to do, was just sit at the hotspot where I was always getting orders and just keep going back to the spot, keep going back to the spot. It's like this big shopping plaza that's got all kinds of like restaurants, stores, Vons. Vons is a good one. Unfortunately, the Vons specifically in that hotspot area does not have good reception. My phone doesn't get reception near the store. Like, there's little areas where I don't get reception. And I'm not really trying to just talk about Uber Eats this whole time, but that's kind of what's on my mind. But let's move past Uber Eats. It's an option to make money when you need something and you want to kind of like pay for something. You can kind of estimate how much money you need to make and be like, okay, I'm going to make $40 today, I'm going to make $50 today, and just estimate how much money you need to make if you have the time to be driving like that to make the money. But if you're working another job, you're probably not going to have the time. So I've been dealing with that. That's been a major source of income, but also a major waste of time and energy. And then moving from that into, just applying every day. The reason why I was doing Uber Eats is because I was trying to study, trying to get my own customers, and trying to apply for jobs. So I was like, it helped in that way because it was so flexible. It's not like, oh, I have to be on the clock, but, you know, it was just possible to make money, at least a little bit. Like, it wasn't no money, but unless you have a car that's like a hybrid or an electric vehicle or something where you can actually like not have to spend a lot on gas, your profits are really eaten up by the gas a lot too. I estimated I spend about 10 to 15 bucks in gas almost every day just doing lunch deliveries, and that's if I go like 11 to like 2 or so. On average, I'd say I was driving probably, honestly, about 2 hours, about 8 hours about 8 hours a week. So about 4 days a week, about 2 hours each time. That was average, and it just kind of adds up. But that's not sustainable. And the customers I was getting for digital marketing, it wasn't consistent because I'm spreading my energy with, trying to do applications and studying all these different skills and practicing them and like, and, applying to a bunch of jobs, but not really hearing back from many other than the mental health sites. Those are really the only sites. They kept contacting me back. And so once I got connected with this recruiting company, they kept trying to send me jobs, and I kept telling them, hey, like, that's really far. I would prefer something remote, and then they found something that's hybrid, but it's not really that hybrid. It sounds like it's more like in the community, um, partly hybrid, but not that hybrid. Um, so I don't really know. We'll see. I'm gonna jump into it, see how fast I can save 20K, and then move on from there. I mean, it's back in mental health. I wasn't really trying to go back into mental health, but it's not too um, intensive with the mental health side of things. It's more like meeting clients that just got discharged from the hospital, making sure they have resources, they stay on the caseload for 30 days, so they're not like long term clients. Uh, and so I feel more comfortable about that because I can just make my money. Now, this is 9 hours a day, no paid lunch. There are benefits, 401k after 6 months. I'd have to wait to be able to opt in to healthcare insurance. Right now, I don't really know if I want my healthcare insurance to change. I'm gonna have to see what that's gonna look like. Um, but I'm like, I'd rather have the steady money and save fast, and then keep looking for the job that I left the field to try to get to. It's just it took a while, it took a long time to actually learn, because when I started learning, it was September 2022, and I was still working, and I decreased my hours from 40 hours a week to 32 hours a week, and so I could at least have one day to study. And then when I left that job, the last day of December 2022, coming into 2023, I was not working that job at all. I spent the year, building up skills, you know, getting my own customers, working Uber Eats to supplement some of that. But basically, it was too many things when it's like I still have to study, and I still have to apply, and I still have to try to apply these skills so that I can build experience. Because the problem is trying to get into a tech role. If you don't have the experience, you can't get into the role. And so I don't have that much experience compared to psych. I have 9 years if you count my practicums, 7 years if you count, just the full-time work, full-time paid work. Um, in the tech world, I do not have 7 to 9 years of experience. I'd say there was 1 year that I was working for someone way back, and then I could say from there, well, let's call it 1.5 years, if I'm being generous, 1.5 years, because there were 2 jobs I've had. One was for it was a private, you know, person who hired me, and then one was a company who had me kind of doing a little bit of work for them. And so we'll call that 1.5 years. One for the lady I was working with, I made like $100 a day while she was looking over my shoulder the whole time, and it was like weekends. And then for the other person, I made I think it was 10 or 15. I think it was 15 an hour, writing SEO content for a startup. And from there, I was with some friends trying to get into a startup, but I guess it fell through. I don't really know what happened. We had like our first meeting online back when we used to meet on Skype. This was probably like '07 or somewhere. All right, sorry, my alarm decided to chime. But yeah, that's basically been my experience. Um, it's just been, you know, trying to, get experience in a new field where the good thing about it is you can do it yourself. So you can build blogs yourself, you can rank them yourself, you can learn how to do all this by studying other people's content online yourself. You can learn web design yourself. You can sell your own things, through Fiverr, Upwork, whatever other options you can come across. You can do that yourself. Um, you don't really need, like, I don't think anybody looks and they're like, oh, you went to school for this, or like, you did this or that. It's like, can you help me with my project, and can you help me get my startup and brand launched? Like, can you help me make money? Can you help me monetize this? Um, can you create good content that's gonna get me sales? That's what people want. They don't really care so much where you went to school. Usually you're not going to school for that kind of stuff. Maybe for marketing at the most, or like some business related thing. Maybe you can learn advertising and all that kind of stuff, but it's really not traditional. And the psych field really is traditional. And so some things I don't like about the psych field is, I don't know if they think about it, but moving up in the field is not, it is not, it's not that it's not possible. It's just, you have to either get licensed, which means you have to stay at a certain place that's writing off certain hours for you, and get licensed and then move up. And community and county work is usually, it's hard to really say what's harder, but it's harder than probably working for a university or working through like a major hospital. Just the clientele is different, the people are different, they usually have higher needs, they usually have access to less. So it's not that you're working harder, that's not the problem of it. It's just that there's not an efficiency to it. County paperwork is just, it gets in the way of caring for the clients, and they don't really prioritize efficiency, so there's a lot of burnout. You end up doing so much so fast. You're working on paperwork fast while you're dealing with very serious situations of people with their chronic issues going on, and then, but finish it fast, like turn it in fast, and it has to be accurate, and you're not going to get a raise ever, even though you're like busting your ass working for these places. So that's kind of what I see as the downfall of the mental health system, is that, the people who need the most help get the most overwhelmed workers. And then there's high turnover in those jobs, and the pay is just crappy. Like, let's be real. I've already talked about it before. If you're living in Southern California and you're making less than $40 an hour, it's not going to be very comfortable for you. Like, because if you think about it, it's like, if you have two people, like a lot of households, most households I know have two incomes. And the extra money is spent on food and utilities. If there's more people living there, you're buying more food for two people, and then you're spending more in utilities, I'm assuming, because like there's more showers being taken, there's more water being used. So utilities are a little bit more, getting used a little bit more. But other than that, you have two incomes. So if you have even two people making $20 an hour, that's going to be good. But if you're one person making $20 an hour or even $25 an hour, that's going to be hard to live off of, because the math just doesn't add up. I mean, out here it doesn't add up, you know? Like, if you're supposed to be spending a third of your income on rent, let's say if you make $25 an hour and you work a 40-hour work week, that's $1,000 that you're bringing in a week. And then if you multiply that by people say 52 weeks in a year, that's $52,000 a year before taxes, because you're paying a lot in taxes. That's before your deductions, they get taken out for your benefits, and that's before your retirement contributions. So you're actually bringing in, I mean, even if you're taking out 10% of that, that's 46,800. So you're taking out more than 10%, because you're paying more than 10% in taxes out here in California, and there's going to be more than 10% total deducted from your paycheck is going to be more than 10%. So even if you deduct 10%, you're making $46,800 a year, right? And so let's say, okay, if you divide that by 12, you have about 3,900 a month. That's if only 10% is taken out. And then if you divide that by 3, that's 1,300. You usually can't find a studio out here for $1,300. A studio apartment. That's going to be high competition if you do find one that even exists. Most of them are over 1,500, closer to 2,000. But you can find apartments, you know, near the 2,000 range, go up to like 1,800 to like 2,100. You're going to be more comfortable. But making $25 an hour, if you're only deducting 10% of your expenses, which you're deducting more, because even if you don't get the healthcare insurance, you have to pay for that. You have to get it. You have to pay out of pocket then. And even if you don't contribute to your retirement, which in all honesty, that is not a very smart decision. You know, you're basically skipping that step so that you can live in the now, you know, so that you can try to find an apartment that's $1,300 a month. You're gonna have to spend more than $1,300 a month, you know, on rent, and you're gonna spend more than 10% in your deductions. So it basically, it doesn't even add up for like making $25 an hour. That's not enough, you know. And so the math just doesn't add up. 40 is a more comfortable. I've done the math a billion times. You know, 40 an hour is more comfortable. It puts you in a different bracket for taxes, so you are paying a little bit more too, out of taxes. But the expenses, that's kind of where it is to meet the rent needs. I have not seen hardly any jobs at all that pay $40 an hour, starting. Now that's the key, is the starting. Now, I would say the only real method that I'm seeing for people is to take a job where you see that there's manager positions and other positions that you could potentially get into that pay more. Or get yourself in a position where you either live with roommates, God forbid, roommates, or family, or somewhere, or with someone, or in some state where you can save so much more money, and then get something else. You know, I'm either trying to open like a group home facility or a parking lot, like a shelter service type of parking lot where homeless can park there. um, and make it government funded. Either one of those, the parking lot's probably going to be cheaper. Um, but that's kind of my next route. If I end up staying in psych, I'm just saving so that I can at least get some form of a property that's going to bring me income. Or, I'm still going to be developing these tech skills. I mean, this job that I've signed on to do is not sustainable. The only sustainable part of it is that I'm not going to be living with wild people that are going to be waking me up all the time. So I live in a stable environment, and I'm not going to be you know, having like too many expenses. Now, I am going to have to figure out a car situation, either put a lot of money into repairs of this old 2006 car that I'm driving, or, I got to do the math and see if getting a used, maybe Prius for like, you can buy them in the $8,000 to $12,000 range. I don't know what leasing one would look like. If I leased one for 6 to 12 months, I don't know what is cheaper. The car repairs that I'm going to have to do to maintain this car, and the gas I'm going to spend, because it's an SUV, so it guzzles. So is that going to be cheaper and not having those car payments, or leasing a car and having car payments? If I lease the car for work, I mean, I can't do it through the job, but if I lease the car for work, I'm wondering if it could be a tax write-off if I only used it for the job itself. That's what I don't know, but I'm gonna have to figure that out. I'm gonna have to figure out if I mean, I don't know if I want to buy a car, like a hybrid that's already, got over 100,000 miles on it. I don't really know if I'd want to do that. But leasing is expensive too. But fixing an old car is expensive too. So, and spending the gas, because the gas, I mean, that car on the books, like according to like what it says, it gets 19 miles to the gallon. It does not. I don't think it gets 19 miles to the gallon. It gets a little less than that. And so, and it's leaking fluid and all kind of stuff. Like, it's got repairs that need to be done that are worth more than the car is worth. I mean, that they're going to cost more than the car is worth, but at the same time, it's not. It's not. It's not a bad. I mean, it works. It works fine. It's not a bad car. So yeah. Alright, now here on Tomboy Official, I have not really been posting a lot lately. Mostly because I've been, trying to find, a headhunter, getting my resume back up in order. I mean, I have like 4 resumes because I have different types of resumes. I have one for mental health. I have one for research in, quantitative research mostly, some qualitative research. I have a resume for like digital marketing and one for tech sales. And so I have 4 different types of resumes. And so it took a little over a week to update all of those. I went through jobleads.com. I got a 2-week free subscription. It helped with the webinars, trying to learn these systems about, what's gonna make it so that I Basically, what's gonna make it so that I can, um, get my resume at least seen. But during that time, I got the recruiter to kind of get back to me. Now, I don't even know what this job thinks about LGBT people. Um, it's located out far. um, in LA, basically, I'm a little I'm between LAX and Long Beach. This job is up past the 10, past Hollywood, so it's far. Well, it's based out of there. It's not. That's not where I have to be every day. Um, I would be working at home, starting from home, going out in the community, back home. Um, and its surrounding areas. It's not too far, but some can be a little far, up to like 10, 12 miles one way, which out here is like, with zero traffic is like 30 or so minutes. Probably you need like about a 45-minute buffer to get there, so that's already like an hour and a half. Excuse me, an hour and a half out of the day just of commuting if I have to go to the farthest places every day. But that's better than the 3 hours of commuting that I would have to have if I worked downtown. 3 hours of daily commuting. And I might have to drive to the valley once a month. I don't know yet. They asked if I'd be willing to, but I don't really know if that's. They didn't mention that anywhere. So I feel like. I mean, the interview went really good. And the only thing I really see are dollar signs. That's the only thing I'm focused on. Doing good work, good quality work. What's the money that I'm saving? What's it going to? I mean, this is going to be a saving season, saving and investing season. If I can invest 20K during this year when there's so much that's red, that would be ideal to me. If I could start investing very, very, very heavily this year, that's going to set me up really, really good. If I can invest 20K in 6 months, that's very doable with the math I did. If I can invest 20K in 6 months, I should be good to go. So there's a lot that I'm going to need to learn. I mean, it's going to be tough learning a new job role. I don't know if I'm going to come up against any prejudice. Most of these people, I'm not going to meet them too much in person. The only thing I really worry about are dress codes. That's really the only thing that comes to my mind. If somebody's like, you have to wear skirts and blouses or whatever, but I don't think that's. I just won't do it. I don't really care. And if that becomes something that they need from me and I'm not doing it, they can fire me. I will let a place. I mean, I don't. Like I'm saying, this isn't where I was trying to go, but I see the potential for the savings, for the money, the experience. I don't know. The job site, I might be able to network into a better standing. I do have an in with another site that a friend told me about. Not an in. I have an idea of another site that a friend told me about. So I'm gonna just see where I can go with all this, and then I mean that's basically my plan. Like I don't foresee them having any major issues with anything. Like I don't have any things that are like non-professional. That would be weird. I don't think. I don't think being an LGBT person is really going to concern them. I don't see how it would ever even come up. Um, the only thing, one person did mention going to church. Like when you check in and people ask you about your weekend, one person did kind of mention that, and that's one thing that to me is like, but who knows? I mean, there are plenty of, most of the people I know grew up Christian going to church and aren't prejudiced. And so and if you live in LA, it's very likely that, I mean, you've got plenty of exposure to all types of people. Um, and discrimination in the workplace, I mean, it doesn't really sound like I'm going to be like in an office where I'm having to see a lot of people on such a regular basis anyways, to the point that it's really going to be an issue. So I don't really foresee any real issues with it. I can come up with all kinds of anxious thinking about it, but I really don't foresee anything specific. They do seem at least to have some kind of care for minority populations, especially considering that there's a certain point where they, with minorities, you know, when they talk about the Discrimination Act and stuff like that, like in the job descriptions, they were very clear about like natural hairstyles. Like they don't discriminate against locks, natural hairstyles. I guess if you have a head covering and that kind of stuff, and so you know that part was very extensively covered as far as like people being able to kind of wear braids and wear their hair in protective styles and all types of stuff that usually a lot of places might complain about. I mean, I went to a school where they would tell people that boys can't have long hair, and boys can't wear braids and dreadlocks in general, even the term dread, but I mean like locks in general were considered, unacceptable and all. Like when you hear stuff like that, it's like, okay. Like I can kind of understand people saying like no blue hair or whatever. Like they did say that too. Like you can't dye your hair blue or pink. It had to be like of a natural color, even if it wasn't your natural color. You couldn't just like pick some kind of like artificial looking, like a color hair that nobody's ever born with. You can't have like green hair or something. But that kind of gives me hope, seeing that there's a statement, more related to, at least people have some concept of like different minority groups being different, having different needs and things and different, acceptance. And so I would hope that that would translate over into other minority groups, not just ethnic and related to hair, which is an important thing. I mean, there are jobs where, they might not, where places might make it so that males have to be clean shaven, or males have to have, certain haircuts, or they can't have piercings or tattoos. Like people can't have tattoos. Like certain stuff that's kind of like, are you really gonna be that strict over these kind of things when it's somebody else's personal body? Like to some people, they might have tribal tattoos, they might have piercings and jewelry and things that actually have like deeper meaning. It might be something tribal, it might be something traditional, so to tell somebody, no, you can't do that because we don't see it as acceptable. And it's like, you've already done it. Like, you've already gotten piercings, you've already gotten the tattoos. Like, this was like before you even worked there. But what if it's like a rite of passage or something? Like, they need to be more sensitive to different cultures. But I'm seeing that I'm seeing that a lot of work sites are kind of trying to get there. But I don't know, like I'm happy. I'm overwhelmed. My schedule has drastically changed this week and the last few weeks, honestly, which is why I haven't been posting much. Um, Ever since the end of my Ramadan experience, I've been trying to kind of change up how I do things, and we'll see what that means for this podcast. I I don't really see myself completely posting nothing on here, but I do try to keep it relevant to the LGBT stuff. And so what I'm gonna try to do is, if anything LGBT related even comes up, I'll post it on here. But I don't really want to be posting all the daily updates that don't really have anything to do with, you know, anything specific. I kind of want to keep it more, tailored towards the actual LGBT topics that arise. Now, just being an LGBT person, navigating like a trying to have a professional life and living in Southern California, and trying to have independence and dealing with the economy while you have multiple degrees, and trying to get out of a field into a new field when all your experience is in one field, and trying to get experience in other fields so that you can land jobs with better pay. That in and of itself is just a crazy experience. But I mean, because everything's been so remote, and I've been so just like, okay, I'm just doing my own thing. I really haven't interacted with that many people. I mean, Uber Eats, yeah, but I mean, I really haven't interacted with that many people on a deep level to where anything's come up, really. It's just been friends, reconnecting with friends. Um, Not really meeting new people. I haven't met new people necessarily. Like a sprinkle. I've met like friends of friends, but I'm not like keeping in touch with them. And there's a lot of friends I want to see that I haven't had time to really see, or really wanting to spend the money to go see them. Doing Uber Eats has really made it so that it's like, in order to make more money, I know what I have to do, and knowing that I have to drive way more hours to try to get more money to get down to San Diego, to be able to actually stay down there and like afford to stay down there for a couple days. The amount of Ubering it takes just to get the money to do that is usually not worth that expense. So I haven't really taken that many trips down there, unfortunately. But I'm gonna focus on my savings and building up so that I can kind of get, if I do end up staying in psych, that's my goal. Build up so I can get to, something that has to do with property, or something that is a little more sustainable without, being on the front lines and doing literal footwork, and, having to be running all over town doing stuff for low pay. I would consider this job, it's more than what I was getting paid. So that's the reason I was like, okay, so my criteria was, I want to get paid more than what I was getting paid. And if it's not remote, it's going to have to be in LA, but not far. And so this was the best I could do. That was working out quickly. I was like, I'd rather not keep waiting, because, if I can make thousands of dollars a month, in a more streamlined way, then that might be better. Even though it's 9 hours a day, You're on the clock 9 hours a day. I don't think that's gonna work out okay for me. Um, Lunch isn't paid, so you're basically 8.5 hours getting paid. But the way I see it, I don't know. I feel like companies should always have a paid lunch, but that's just my opinion. But you're getting paid 8.5 hours a day, then I've got to see what they say about the 8.5. Because if you're on the clock 9 hours a day, but then they say it's 8 hours a day, it's like, so do they not count your breaks and stuff? Because that's kind of BS. I don't like that. But what can you do? You know, right now I'm in a place where I'm gonna have to play the game because it's what's working out. They're gonna use me for my skills and my abilities and my experience. I'm gonna use them for my savings, and see where I can either start to get a leg up in connections through this company, or at the very least savings. So that's kind of the benefit, in my opinion. There's no other benefit to me. I mean, it's not the same type of psych work. Once I heard more about the job, I was like, okay, this is a little bit different, and it's not as like in-depthly involved with like the same people calling you day after day, week after week for like years on end. Like, it's not like that. So I kind of like, in a way, I kind of like the idea of not having that deeper connection to the clients. Like, not that I don't want rapport and that I'm not going to do a good job. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's a difference knowing somebody for 30 days versus knowing somebody for like even 6 months. You know, working with clients longer term. You can think about it when you've had like a personal trainer, you know, a teacher, a professor, a pastor. Like, if you've had anyone in your life where you've developed like, you know, like a youth pastor, like a deep connection over like years or over multiple months, versus if you have like, I don't know, somebody who comes in for like a some kind of cram thing. Like, say if they're teaching you at school, they're teaching you like career building skills, and somebody comes in once a week for 4 weeks, that relationship is going to be different than the teacher that you see every single day for that whole school year, you know. So just that alone is, in a way, less draining, because you're not like that involved. You know, you're not that involved. Like, you're involved short term, and that was an appeal to me. To me, that's a plus, because I feel like it's less demanding. Like, people don't get so comfortable relying on you, and the goal is to get them connected. The goal isn't to have long-term clients that, you know, it's just a different goal, you know. And I think that'll be less emotionally consuming. I'm assuming it will be less, but I don't really know for sure. But I did like the appeal of that. So, and then if the job does end up just being something shorter term, if I can't manage my health while doing this, it's not going to be worth it. If the job ends up being just shorter term, it's not going to be worth it. I mean, if it ends up being shorter term, it's going to be on me. So, yeah. I mean, I don't really foresee any of this being like an issue, really. But yeah, I don't think it really needs to be like very long term, like a very long term job role. I'm just doing this to get what I can out of it. If I like the company, I'll know once I'm working for them. But basically, a lot of these companies that went remote, they're losing staff. A lot of mental health sites are losing staff because their interns are leaving because they're graduating in May and June. So a lot of their interns are leaving, and then a lot of their yeah, they've got interns leaving, and they've got just a lot of them are short staffed anyways. But they can't pay well. They can't pay well. And that means I can't stay. That's just how it is. It's like I can't be working for places that don't pay well. That's not really gonna work out for me. Like if I can't get an apartment, then they don't pay good enough, you know. Um, but that's all I'm gonna do. You know, save the money. I'll go down to San Diego every so often, and then otherwise I'm just gonna save the money. Like, I mean, I've got student loans to pay and stuff too, but you know, I'm gonna save and invest, and I'm gonna reevaluate in 3 months and then 6 months. And I think that'll be worth it. But that's kind of all I've got to say for now. I don't know what my next updates are going to be about because I don't really know what the future holds. But I've got a lot of trainings and stuff I've got to get online and finish probably around 8:30 today. Try and bang some stuff out, and then kind of get on with my week. We'll see if I start by April 29th. That's kind of what the rumor is. But alright guys, that's my update for now.